Hey guys and girls, welcome to Forgetting Walls, the podcast, episode 28. This week, we have a friend on the show from north of the border. That's right. Darcy Rumble from Giants in the Sound Skypes in from Canada and sits on the show with us as we talk about music, we talk about the SCOTUS ruling, we talk about Charleston shooting again, kind of revisiting those things and getting his opinion, sitting in from another country. He also tells us a whole lot about what goes on in his life, how he got into music reviews and recommending music and doing the interviews he does on Giants in the Sound. And he also gives us a nice little tidbit on how his name, Darcy Rumble, has caused him a little bit of humor over the years. Also, Justin also gives us some juicy bits. And you know him, it's always about intoxicated animals. Anyways, we want to say thank you for listening to the show. And since we're here, I'm going to promote GiantsInTheSound.com, ForgettingWalls.com. Go check us out on Facebook.com/ whichever one you want to hit. Same at Twitter. Just want to say thank you again. We love you. And it's your chance to get on with that step.
Yeah. Welcome to the podcast.
I gotta gain my composure a second. Hold on. Hey guys and girls, welcome to Forgetting Walls, the podcast. Yes, woo! We're on episode 28, and it has been, I would say it's been it's been a crazy week, but it's really only been a weekend.
Yeah, it's been like 2 days since we last. Is it 2 days since we last recorded? 2 or 3?
Yeah. 2 days, because we recorded on Friday, and because of the schedule changes that I had to make because of my personal life, and we figure, hey, well, we need to start recording on Mondays, and we have to record on Monday, so we're actually going to be recording a week out from when we post, unless I get frisky and say we're going to change our put-out date. Or should I say it like that? Wow.
Great choice of wording. Great choice of wording.
You know me.
I have to say. So I'm Justin.
Yeah, and I'm Keith. I forgot all of what I was doing. It's so much going on at one time, and if you heard the other laughter in the background, we do have somebody else on with us, but unfortunately our usual regular people, Keith is not here, and everybody else is not here, and we absolutely have a great friend on the show, a friend we just met, and who I think is going to be a great friend in the future with us, with the coolest name that can be given to a human being, Darcy Rumble.
Hey, yeah, guys, thank you so much for letting me be a part of this. I've been listening for a while, so I'm just super stoked to be a part of this, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Awesome. So people know that our relation to Darcy, like, how did we start interacting?
Well, I'll just say this, just speaking out there first. Somehow, somewhere in the recent past couple months, I came across something on Facebook and liked it. And the name of the Facebook page was Giants in the Sound. And if you pay attention to Forgetting Walls, you have seen myself especially repost a lot of stuff and give shout-outs to Giants in the Sound. And that is where we know Darcy from. Darcy, would you want to tell us, before we get involved in anything else real quick, just a little bit about Giants in the Sound, and then we can maybe talk a little bit more about it in the meat and potatoes time.
Yeah, absolutely. So it just started out as I was doing a little bit of blogging, maybe once or, every couple weeks or something like that. And so Giants in the Sound is just a music blog I run. It's just a one-man effort right now, just doing some music reviews and some interviews when I can line them up, and just trying to recommend some good music to people. So it's mostly Christian artists and mostly more in the heavy world. A lot of hardcore bands, but I shake it up if I get come across like a worship band I'm super stoked about. Like Keith mentioned, the band. I'm totally forgetting their name now. I've been talking
Thieves and Kings.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, if I come across a band clearly that I'm stoked about like that, then I'll recommend worship music or yeah. So I'm just super stoked to be building a friendship with Forgetting Walls.
Oh, we love you
guys,
too.
Oh my gosh, Justin!
I'm just joining the family here. Thanks, guys.
Justin, I'm gonna have to work on your manliness.
Don't try to change me, Keith.
Well, Justin, now that we've introduced our friend, and let's go ahead and get started in this first segment. We want to talk about a few things, and I'm just gonna let you kind of rush on in there.
Yeah. So, if by the time this is posted, last week I wrote a blog post. And so far, it's only been like 2 days since it's been published, or a day actually since it's been published. But it's actually gotten a lot of really positive reception so far. And it makes me really proud because while you probably notice Keith talks more on the podcast than I do, I'm definitely more of a writer than a talker. Writing is something I've always been passionate about, and I've had a blog for a long time, and I've transitioned over to Forgetting Walls writing, on this website. And so this was it. I actually wrote the post in about a day. It was about 5 hours. I finished the entire post. It ended up being about 1,500 words, and just about kind of my own reactions to the Supreme Court ruling on legalizing gay marriage here in America, and also on the whole controversy with the Confederate flag in light of the Charleston shooting and all of that. So if you haven't gone and read it so far, go to our website and click on the blogs. It's titled Lowering the Confederate and Raising the Rainbow, Jesus, the Other, and Reconciliation. Go read it. Tell me what you think about it, because even if you hate it, because I haven't gotten any negative reception from it so far. So if you hate it, you'll be the first. And also, I always love criticism. So, thank you.
You're welcome. No, I want to say that it was even where people I don't think actually just came out and said they really agree with everything you said. Everybody did say that it was a well-written blog. I will admit that. I enjoyed it. Of course, even though we differ on a few things, I kind of lined up with you on most everything there, except where I had to stagger the words out at the bottom.
That was an aesthetic choice. It's a poetic device.
Yeah, but we got it. We got it good.
Yep.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I'll say this to the reception and the things that I saw come from it. I saw people who have been on my friends list since they were like in the middle school.
Yeah.
That were in youth ministry that have kind of drifted away from me and haven't said anything. And they picked up on this article and, not that it was actually speaking to me, but they were at least still paying attention to things that were coming across my feed out into the public, which I'm super happy about. Mm-hmm. A lot of different reaction being all positive, but it was from a very wide group of people that some conservative Christians said some very nice things about it that I would not have thought of. So it was very interesting to me. That's what shocked me the most, I think, Justin, was that, I don't understand people and their opinions. I think that's why, guys like Bad Christian, we talk about Bad Christian a good bit, how, they're very on the forefront of people being honest and saying things that they actually mean and what's actually inside them, not just putting on a front. And I feel like sometimes people say things not against anything that you wrote. I'm not saying they didn't like it, but I think sometimes the people that they're in front of or the people they're talking to, they change their opinions based on how they want to be seen by other people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So, but again, it was a very good post.
Thank you.
I checked it out. Oh, sorry.
No,
to cut you off.
Go ahead. Absolutely jump in.
Yeah, I checked it out a couple, probably later on that day after you posted it, and I gotta agree, like, super well written, and something I really appreciated about it was that it was just non-confrontational. Because there were, like, so many of my Christian friends and people I'm seeing on my friends list are just, posting links on Twitter and things, just coming across, just like they're trying to provoke an argument or a debate or something. But,
Right.
I just loved how that post that you wrote was, you could tell that there was actually a lot of care in the words that you chose. And that was just loving, and that you weren't trying to start an argument. You were, just very clearly said your opinion lovingly.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And I think also that the reason that we're here, as Forgetting Walls, as this thing that we are, is, we're not out there to teach anybody, we're here to speak truth. We're trying to speak truth. We're not trying to lie about things. We're trying to be honest and upfront, but we're not here to teach you. And hopefully, I know sometimes we get into little debates about things, but we're not here to debate about things either. We want to be open and honest to show that we need to learn how to love from both sides, and that was the whole point in the beginning. And, sometimes I may come off as very harsh and brash and stubborn and steadfast, but I'm an old man. So, what do you expect? You can't change old man. I'm not a millennial. I feel like I'm a baby boomer more than I am anything else. And that's not me. I'm not that old, but it's something that over the weekend I had, we recorded Friday. So we recorded on the day that the ruling passed.
Yeah.
Which it gave me time to sit and stew over what had happened, what was going on, seeing everybody's feelings. And the funny thing to me was, and like you said, it was a huge thing. I'm not denying that, even at the lackadaisical approach that me and Keith may have made to it.
Yeah.
But I think I knew why I had such a lackadaisical approach to it, a nonchalant approach to it, was because that what was still sitting fresh in my mind was what happened in Charleston a couple of nights before. And that for me was still, it still was weighing on my heart. And I'm not trying to lessen what happened on Friday, but what happened on Friday for me is so less in the grand scheme of things at what happened on that Wednesday in that church. So for me, I felt like it was just a move. It felt like a push. And I'm not blaming it on anybody in that sense of what happened on that day, but the focus from what happened of those 9 people dying in that violent way was, it just like, okay, it's gone now. Now we're going to worry about gay marriage and, where people were still, in the whole Confederate flag thing. Yeah. It wasn't, everybody started focusing away from the grieving and the mourning that was going on towards, let's remove the flag. The flag wasn't the problem, and I didn't want anything. I felt like it was just taking the place of everything. Let's find something happy and not think about that. Let's not remember those who are in mourning. Let's think about this. I'll put this to the both of you.
Okay.
Look at what's happened in the United States in the past year with the racism things, right? With the cops and everything. Charleston was the only city that had a violent racist tragedy that didn't have a riot. Why?
That's true.
Think about that. It was.
Yeah. And I can't say for certain why, but for me, you definitely had this sense of, out of Charleston, at least a sense of unity out of the city. And people who live there, and I know people who live there, and I've heard from them talking about how really just the city rallied together, and because Charleston's not a huge city, and so like people knew each other, and they just came together and supported one another and mourned with one another, and also what to me was so crazy was. How the family of the victims, how they extended grace and extended like forgiveness to the killer.
Right.
And that, I think that spoke volumes for not only the family but for the victims who were part of those families. And so yeah, I mean, again, I mean, sociologically I could break it down as to why like riots happen in different places, but yeah, I don't think that's the point.
No, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it almost seems a little unsettling, that there isn't a huge kind of, because I guess we're kind of almost accustomed to that kind of like violent response.
Right.
So it's like there's something just about that kind of, like you said, the grace of like the families of the victims. Like, I don't know, there's just something that shakes me even more, just feeling that there's that kind of forgiveness and that kind of unity in that community.
I don't want to play off of that one community's more Christian or less Christian than any other community, but I think, Justin, you may have like kind of hit it on the head. It is a smaller place. I mean, Ferguson's not a large place, but it's a suburb of a very large place.
Right.
Baltimore's a large city with a lot of people in it. Do you think that because like Ferguson, and let's just use Ferguson and Baltimore for example,
Right.
that it was because it was a police action that promoted the necessity for a riot, or was it because you think that here in Charleston that it was maybe the where it happened, who it happened to, promoted the ability to have more peaceful type of resolutions?
Right. I think it's a little bit of a both and situation, because I mean, what you had happen in Ferguson and in Baltimore were police incidents, and that is, they represent like an institutional government system. And so when those kinds of injustices happen, that shows something extremely flawed with the institution in which perpetuated those crimes. And so it's a lot easier, and it makes a lot more sense to riot and to protest like government authority and all that stuff when it seems that from the government these things are coming down from there. These injustices are happening from an institutional sort of sphere. And so I think with Charleston, it was a individual gunman. It was a dude who had a screwed up ideology, and I mean, the dude sat in there for an hour before he killed all those people. But it's so I'm not just putting it off that he was crazy. That in which I do think there were some wires probably mixed up there, but that's also indicative of a social problem as well, but it's not directly linked. It's a much more nebulous connection to an institutional system that teaches racism and oppression. But when it comes from the police who represent like our government officials, that's a lot more direct connection for people to make, and it makes rioting a lot more justified and easier in the mind to me.
I can see that. I mean, of course, Charleston's probably historically one of the most racist cities there is.
Right.
I mean, just historically speaking, I mean, you can point to that. I mean, I mean, that poor church has been burnt several times. And and just for everything, for me, not dealing with Mr. Roof, who was the killer of this kid, and I don't even know why I call him Mr. I just did. But Dylan Roof, who walked into there, and that was my thing. I heard an interview, or I heard some people talking about him actually saying when he was in there in the church with them that those people were so nice and kind and basically loving that he almost changed his mind of doing
he
what
almost didn't do it.
And that's what that blew me away, saying, look, I mean, that's how great hatred is.
Yeah.
But that shows you how great love can be. I mean, when somebody's got their mind made up, when they're that dead set on doing something, it's really hard to change them. But when you say, I almost didn't do it, that blows my mind. And for me, I think that, like I said, it's a cowardly way to do something. What he did, I could not in no way find any type of justification in my heart to forgive him for something like that, even though that's what I should do. And what those people in that church and those families did in the outpouring of grace, like you said, extending that grace.
Mm-hmm.
And I could say this to an atheist or to another person, but for me, that helps me focus on God so much more. That gives me so much more hope in the faith that I put myself into, you know, and to see somebody else do that, you know, which it makes me feel kind of, you know, bad inside because of who I am. It shows me how big the grace of God is, and whether anybody agrees with that or not, that was grace that most people would be shouting and just with the angriest sentiment of die, die, die. He needs to die just like they died. But they're showing this grace that's unbelievable. And that's what out of everything really got to me over the past week.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to bring it back up because I don't think it's something that should die under, hey, great, absolutely big, huge deal for America to pass that, or for the Supreme Court to rule what they did. Yep. Great that Bree climbed that flagpole and pulled down the Confederate flag herself. She did get arrested, but you know, but she climbed that flagpole and pulled it down herself. I don't know how I actually feel about that one way or the other. You know, but I don't
Girl's
think
got some parkour skills,
dude. For
that's
real,
all I gotta say.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie to you. I couldn't have climbed that flagpole. And
Dude, yeah.
and speaking on that, I really detested how some people kind of praised her but insulted her at the same time. Did you see the meme going around? That's the only woman I respect on a pole. I thought that was that was.
Oh, I did not see that.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, I mean it was I mean I just want to put it out there. That's how ridiculously ignorant people are. See how I chose my words there?
Yes, you did.
I did good that time.
I'm proud of you.
Oh, thank you. But that was. It's just like, okay, maybe you didn't agree with her, maybe you did agree with what she did, but you know, there's lines you got to draw as a human being, and that was one of those lines that somebody crossed.
Yeah.
But I don't think those things should they shouldn't overshadow what happened, that we would forget.
Right, and I think that's an important point because it's so easy for all of us, I think especially with the perpetuation of social media and the sort of kind of fake activism that a lot of people have online, you know, either by promoting a hashtag, which awareness is good. Don't hear me like say awareness is not a good thing. But if you're not actually doing anything to change like the problem, then that leads to a bigger problem. And I think my point here, and what I want to say is that it's so easy for us to get caught up in an issue and be so fiery and passionate about it, and there to be like thousands of articles written about it, and for everyone to be talking about it and having an opinion and arguing with people over Facebook, defriending people, clearing their friends list with anyone who disagrees.
Exactly.
and then a week later, it's no one cares. Like, it's completely gone from everyone's mind, and things go on like nothing ever happened. And I think that's total crap. And I think that needs to change.
I agree with you.
And so I think that's a valid point, bringing up the Charleston shooting. You know, even though people will be like, oh, but this great thing has happened, you know, and don't get me wrong, like, I've written, it is a great thing. I'm really happy for it. But yeah, I totally agree with you. That is so easy for us to lose track of these things that happen and get distracted. It's like our culture has ADD.
Well said.
It's we keep going from one thing to another, and we get pissed off about this one thing, and then we're super happy about that thing, and then look, a cat video, and it just. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna say.
Well, and I want to add to that you're right. It's the worst attention span I've ever seen a country have about what's going on in their own country. About
things that freaking matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, look, anybody can write a hashtag. I mean, it's simple, like you said. But to be a part of that, to live a part of that, to actually do something about it, and that's what I hate. Social media has created, a fad to be on the fad. At the same time, it's like, oh, love wins, so let me hashtag that. Oh no, Charleston shooting, Charleston praying, pray for Charleston. But in 35 minutes, free Bree, all these hashtags rolling around, but nothing ever sticks, and it's just no wonder we have such issues in our country, because I'll tell you what, before we switch over to the meat and potatoes, I want to ask, Darcy, from what you've seen, if people don't know that are listening to the show, and if we haven't mentioned it, Darcy is not from down our way. He is from he's from north of the border. He's up in the great land of Canada.
Yeah, that's why you didn't hear me jumping in too much there, because I'm even more separated from this situation. But I'm totally agreeing with you guys that it seems like, okay, first of all, about the legalization of the gay marriage. You probably saw it, or at least up here, it's pretty popular. There's a thing on BuzzFeed, like 50 people tweeting like, oh, I'm moving to Canada. Oh, this country
yeah, exactly.
Right. Meanwhile, it's been legal up here for a full decade.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So I'm like, well, you were going to be very disappointed to find that.
Yeah, very disappointed.
Yeah, it's even more established up here. So really, I'm with you guys that, okay, first of all, because the legalization, I'm surprised it didn't come sooner, and everybody's saying, hashtag love wins, when really, like, there is still so much hate and so many, deep-seated issues that need to be addressed. And like you said, with internet, fads coming and going, I've just seen so many people on my friends list doing that thing with the Facebook app to change, put the rainbow over your profile picture. And some of these people, I'm not sure where you're coming from with it, but okay. But really, my wife had to listen to me rant about this whole kind of thing for like 2 hours the other night. Just that, we're all stoked for the U.S., legalizing the marriage and everything, but there is all these instances of hate going on that really aren't talked about. We'll see, our news will obviously cover a couple headlines about the Charleston shooting. Mm-hmm. People say, oh, that's too bad. But, yeah, just quickly breezed over. And really, there's we're, Canada, U.S., we're basically the same. There's nothing you guys do that doesn't affect us up here, really. And I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy how it's just like, I'm with you. I don't want it to go, the way of the Harlem Shake, where everybody talks about it for a week and then it just disappears.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've got more questions for Darcy containing, how he sees things from north of the border, and we'll get to that in a moment after the break. I just want to say real quick, if you haven't checked it out yet, go to the GoFundMe.com/Forgetting Walls. We're just trying to get this thing started to do bigger and better things, and if you can lend your support, we would greatly appreciate that. And if you've heard something tonight that you didn't like, man, go over to ForgettingWalls.com to the podcast section, comment on the page, or go to my goodness, Facebook.com/Forgetting Walls. Can't even remember my own stuff. And give us a comment there. But we'll be back in a moment to dig a little bit more in depth about Darcy Rumble and Giants in the Sound.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Your strength, asking God, please don't take her away from me. God will love you when I needed you the most. Lift up.
And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. That was A Kiss for Jersey
right.
Yeah. Let me just go ahead and try to pronounce this because it's going to be bad.
Okay.
You ready for it?
Yeah.
Salus suas externalias.
All right. Moving on.
Just go check out A Kiss for Jersey, the Victims album, and find the song title that's in Latin.
Yeah.
I butchered it. I wished I could play the whole song because at the end he goes into one of the psalms, like "Oh God, hear my cry." It's just it is such a powerful song. The words, the lyrics. I don't know if it was appropriate for the transition, but it's one of my favorite songs. I can literally listen to this song on repeat. I remember, real quick, when I was doing the youth at a church plant, that last place I was at, Justin, and I remember I wanted to do something different for worship, and the I guess it would be the bridge in the song or the tag at the end of the song where he just keeps repeating that verse from Psalms. It was so powerful. I was like, I've got to do it, but it was so different because it's when you're introducing something to a very kind of conservative nature place, and you play something of this nature, because in the end it's got a nice little breakdown drop and it just gets a little heavy, but he's just crying out. It's just an amazing. If you haven't listened to it, go check it out. It is an amazing song, and you can literally listen to it on repeat. So, meat and potatoes time.
All right.
We have meat and we have potatoes, and it's called Darcy, Rumble, and Johnson the Sound.
I like that.
You like that, eh? Yeah, right. So what we want to do tonight is, and I've been wanting to do this since, like, I'll tell you how it came about in my mind.
Okay.
So we were sitting there on my computer, and I think somebody else was with me, and I was like, dude, somebody, and I didn't recognize it at first, and I was like, somebody's promoted our GoFundMe and gave us this nice little plug, and I was like, oh, it's Johnson the Sound. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I really wanted to get more in depth about, who Johnson the Sound was. And I said, and that's the moment that I became a bigger fan of the site and the reviews, because I spent actual time reading it. I spent actual time listening to the recos, and I was like, dude, I am so stoked that at somewhere, like I said in the beginning, that I did like his page, but even more stoked now that I actually took the time where I was so busy and everything to check it out and listen to. And that is the creation of our friend Darcy Rumble, who has the absolute coolest name. So we were talking before the podcast about your name, and you got to go back and kind of revisit that for us.
Okay, yeah, a lot of people don't even believe that is a real name. I used to be on a couple radio stations a few years ago, and when I was hosting an afternoon show on a rock station, there was this one lady. She called herself Foxy. She called in every single day with her request, and one day she just says, okay, but Darcy, you got to tell me, what is your real name? Like, no, Darcy Rumble, that is my real name. No. For real. It's like, yeah, it's Rumble. And she's like, well, that is the coolest name I have ever heard. Like, oh, well, thank you. I mean, I doubt Foxy is your real name, but that's what she told me every day.
I don't know. Foxy Brown or Foxy Cleopatra.
That's true. Yeah. But yeah, so growing up, I was always hearing, let's get ready to rumble every other time I came into a room. And I was also told on many occasions that pretty much, if I wasn't a radio guy, I should be a professional wrestler with a name like that. And I certainly am not built for that. So
that is, I remember, what was it? Like I was saying earlier, it's like, man, I wanted to send him an email, but I didn't want to just say, hey, dear Johnson the Sound, because that just sounds, because I knew it was you writing everything. I was like, well, I didn't really see anything on the website, but I did see it on the Facebook page. I was like, Facebook page. I was like, what was it? It started with a D. And I went over there. I was like, Darcy Rumble. I was like, that's great. It's just awesome. I love that. Because, no offense, Justin, but me and you just have really plain names.
We have really plain names.
I mean, it's
incredibly.
Yeah, I have been blessed. Yeah, it's a name that it sticks with me.
It does. You don't forget that. It's like, Keith Wilson, I mean, there's like a bajillion of me literally running around.
Yep.
But so, tell us. Let's see. Let's get a little backstory on you. So, I know that you interview like hardcore bands and a lot of Christian bands, like you were saying earlier. How did you come into, let's just say, faith in Christ?
Okay, that's a great place to start because these two are really intertwined. I grew up in a Christian home. I'm from a very small town, like 400 people, so little, very conservative country church. And yeah, you can relate. And my parents were super involved with it, and that was cool. And I went to all the kids programs, and was a leader later on. But I don't know. Once I got like to high school age and started, wondering, what is this actually all about? And my youth group, I came from such a small church that we gathered together with, I think it was 3 or 4 other churches from the communities and put them together. But I just didn't really click with those kids either. And so that's where, checking out heavy music and, I really found my crowd there. Okay, I'll stick with the faith journey. And so it kind of hit the rebellious kind of teen years. And my parents were awesome. They really showed me like a glimpse of, God's love and grace by just loving me so hard through that whole, it was probably like 5 or so years where I was pretty much a jerk because I just, went to church because they wanted me to, but I just wasn't into it. And that kind of thing carried on into my college years a little bit. And I think it was after my first year of college, my grandmother was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she ended up passing away during that summer. And so I was about 5 hours from home, and traveling back there pretty much every weekend I could to visit her, and just seeing like this joy, and just like she was just so sure of that she was going home. Like she was in pain from all the treatments and everything, but just lit up whenever her family came in, and just just had so much love and so much joy. And after she passed away, I was like, dude, that is what I need. Like she just, through her last few days there, really showed me that, that you can authentically live a faith and just have that, assurance in God. And that really, really got me thinking and turned me around a little bit because I was living a pretty destructive lifestyle at that time. And one of my good friends I'd made that summer was raised in a Jehovah's Witness home. And it was actually, the conversation came up in such a random way because I said like, oh, Metallica's playing a show with Lamb of God, like in Ottawa. We could check it out this fall. And she's like, Lamb of God? Like, I don't think, like, that doesn't sound very good. I was like, what? And she's like, isn't that like a name for like Jesus? And then I was like, why? What? Who do you think Jesus is? Like, we got into these super cool conversations, even though we obviously on that point had very different views. But then I started going through and just like trying to figure out, okay, I was raised with this, but what do I actually believe with this? So I actually just started like reading my Bible, like, and actually like studying, like reading like I'd never had before to try to figure out like, what's the truth in here and what do I believe? And
right.
So it was that summer really turned me around. So I always thought like a funny book title for my, if I ever write my memoirs or something would be like how the JWs showed me Jesus or something like that. So yeah, then I ended up moving in with a couple of Christian guys later on, like the next year, and going to our Christian fellowship group, and just got super plugged in there. I ended up getting involved in the leadership. That's where I met the beautiful girl that became my wife, and so it just keeps getting better.
There you go.
But yeah, so now I actually feel like, well, yeah, I've been out of school for a couple of years now, but I feel like we're getting involved in our church in a new town and everything, and I'm just feeling like now I have a faith that's totally mine, and I'm totally sure in it, and it's not just because I was brought up in this church and like going to church is the good thing to do. Like,
Right.
yeah, now I feel like the relationship is real.
Oh, that's awesome.
I appreciate
Thank
you
you.
sharing your story. That's awesome. And I want to point out in all of that, you know, and of course where we come from, you know, as Forgetting Walls, you know, we're learning how to extend grace to everybody, and we love the fact that everybody has different opinions and different belief systems, and we want to try to figure out how to, you know, work together with everybody. But what you said, you know, really sticks with me the most. That is, you know, you're living what you believe out because you believe it, not because somebody taught it to you or you was raised in it. It's yours, you know. And I think a couple of times we've talked about that. I think like with Jack, and I think even with Scholar, that where they, you know, Jake. Thank you, Jack. Sorry, Jack. You know, being atheist agnostic, you know, but that's his, you know, that's what he believes. He lives that. It's his. And, you know, Scholar's Buddhist, and he believes that, and he lives that. And it's not somebody else's because they went down those roads. They've questioned those things. And that for me, when somebody's authentic like that, they're not just kind of, you know, passing out quotes that they've heard somebody speak because, you know, oh, you know, Richard Dawkins is such a good guy and I like what he says, so I'm just going to like regurgitate his stuff, but it really means nothing to me because I don't know what it means myself to me. Right. And you figured that out. I love that, you know, and I think that's what brings people together, finding the genuine nature that they have. You know, you can totally believe different from me, but you're genuine about it. And I appreciate that honesty. I think that's, you know, where we were talking about the fads that happen in the Twitter sphere and Facebook and stuff like that. It's not genuine. It's not, you know, yay, you know, gay marriage is passed, but, you know, when did you really care about that? When did you fight for that? When was that, you know, your thing? When was that your identifier? You know, and that for me, when I hear somebody, you know, I'm living it, you know, that is special because not everybody can say that. I mean, I have days, and y'all can probably attest to it as well, as where some days I'm not living it like I want to, but it's still mine. You know, that's what, you know, really gets at me. So,
Totally, man.
So let me ask you a question. Lamb of God, right?
Yeah.
Don't feel bad. When I was getting into kind of to the hardcore scene, I was out of the, you know, the metal scene for a long time when I was a kid because I went through this very, like I was telling you before, this very long hip hop stage of life where I loved the hip hop scene a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So I got out of the hardcore scene. So Lamb of God was one of those things that kind of passed me by until I came back into the hardcore scene. You know, and I'm the guy who's like, well, I want to check out some hardcore bands and see things. I'm like, Lamb of God. I was like, I'll check them out. Play. Stop. And I have, you know, hey, nothing against you. Do what you want. Sing what you want. But that was not for me.
I remember I used to listen to them all the time. I used to be into them and like Slipknot and like that whole group of bands. So
yeah,
back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
But come on, Slipknot is good though. I'm sorry, Christian friends, but man, you know when
The
you
last album was so solid.
oh, it's just they're just such good musicians across the board, and just it's okay. We won't talk about it. Look, we're going to talk about music on this show for sure.
Yeah.
I'll just say this. I remember when I've heard a few of their things, but when I heard "Wait and Bleed" that first time, just that's all I can say. It played a lot in my car for a long time.
Still does for me.
So, Giants in the Sound. You, of course, like I said, if people are living a hole when it comes to Forgetting Walls, they probably haven't seen us post anything. But we have, of course, we give you shout outs because it's good stuff, and we shout out to people who do good stuff, and you do good stuff. And it's a website. You blog from there. You do interviews, you do reviews, and really good recommendations as well. The Facebook page is up. You have a Twitter account. How for you, and I don't know if we've covered it really, but how for you, maybe in more in-depth view, that you got involved into doing what you're doing right now?
Well, I started really digging heavier music when here is the first CD that I bought on my own. I purchased it online. It was a skate punk band called Smiley Kids, and I couldn't get enough of it because I was raised with like everything that was on Christian radio. Twyla Paris. I had heard like. And then
Wow.
the heaviest thing I heard was like Newsboys because my sister had like a tape or something. And then I came across these kind of bands. Yeah, I'm like, wow. I like discovered punk rock and like these just most like song names like Frowny Clowny, with lyrics like turn your frown upside down, make your smile go round and round. Like it was like the cheesiest thing ever, but there was like such energy and creativity in it. I was like, dude, I did not know there was music like this. Then I got into like Project 86,
my gosh, yes.
the POD, like their Satellite album came out, and then that was like a game changer for me.
For real.
So I started listening to that kind of stuff. I don't know, like grade 8 or something around there, and picked up like a HM magazine. I ordered it in at my Christian bookstore. They give me a deal, and I get it every month. I read that thing like front to back. And I just loved like reading all the interviews, getting to know the ins and outs of the bands. And I was like, man, I want to do this sometime. And so, I ended up going to school for radio broadcasting. I did a 2-year college program for that. And just doing some sweet interviews and stuff like that. And then did a 4-year English degree at university after that. And I was like, okay, like I need to build a portfolio. I might as well, let's start a blog, give me some practice and, get some stuff out there. Because, like, nobody was really writing about stuff I was super stoked about.
Right.
And, I didn't have a lot of friends around me that want to talk for hours about, like, we came as Romans or something. So I'm like, there's lots more people out there in the internet world. So let me throw some ideas out there.
Right.
And, I just started out with a little blog. I would write every couple weeks, and then like, well, Twitter seems to be a great way to connect, so hopped on there and made a Facebook page, and actually got one of my friends who's a real graphic designer to make a logo, so I look a little more legit. So so that's why I had to search to find out it's actually just me, one guy behind it all. But so I actually just started out I had a couple interviews I did with bands at a Christian radio station I worked at a couple years ago. So I just, transcribed those and posted those. And I was like, dude, I want to keep doing this. So I'm racking up a bit of a phone bill, but I just did an interview last week with a hardcore band in Los Angeles. And because people are just stoked that you're interested in their music, and I'm like, well, we can help each other out here.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm just falling in love with it, actually. So, just keeping it going.
That's first comment, though. You're like, POD in Project 86 in grade 8, and I'm like, no way, that's I feel so old, because I remember grabbing POD when I was in the military in Bosnia. That's like what, 2000 and it feels like it was like 2001.
Yeah, I was barely in elementary school.
I was like, my gosh, man. I was like, and I loved that stuff. I mean, I remember, of course, when I was listening to it, I didn't realize that POD and Project 86 and what was it? I was listening to some early Skillet and Pillar and all those guys. I didn't know any of those guys were Christian. And I'm like, man, I love this music. And then I found out, whoa, these guys are actually Christian. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I don't have to, I was like, this is awesome. Like you said, it opens a whole new world when, you're not, I mean, don't get me wrong. Chris Tomlin's great, and Casting Crowns is, good, and Hillsong, but it just doesn't really do nothing for you when you're driving down the road, and you just want to feel that, just like, oh, I love you, Jesus, but I love you.
Exactly. And like when I was that angsty teen and stuff, I'm like, Christians can make this music too. Like I was mind blown, and I'm like, I don't have to wear polos all the time. Like, I don't have to be one of those youth group kids.
Oh my gosh. Man. It's amazing. And for me, it's amazing to see how music is it's such a useful tool. Like, and okay, yeah, we're going to speak from a very Christian point of view right now, but music is such a useful tool connecting to an audience that you normally connect with. I'm a little outside the box when it comes to when I was in youth ministry because, you know, I was a little weird. I'm still am a little weird, right, Justin?
No comment.
No comment. But, you know, I wanted to be the guy who wouldn't refuse anybody. I wanted to let everybody know that, you know, you're welcome here. I might not be the greatest person and I might screw up, but you're welcome here and I don't care. And man, the kids who came in, and this is the funny thing for me. You know, when you talk about the normal youth group kids, the polo, the CCM type of kids, I call them.
That was definitely not us.
No, it wasn't us. But you know what I noticed though? The kids who love the hardcore scene, I call them well, everybody else called them my skater kids, but you know, because well, they all skated, but but you know, I saw more passion and more drive, and just this deep love, like to really drive for God, more out of those kids than I saw out of your, you know, just your normal youth group kids that were there because their parents were there. And, you know, this is what they've done their whole life. But these kids who came in, like a lot of them just literally off the streets, you know, hardcore kids, cut up jeans, busted up Vans, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And they were just who they were so honest and genuine. And I loved that about them. And I'm like, and I was able somehow to connect with them because I was like, I love your music. I'm about this. And it wasn't a gimmick.
Yeah, and I remember part of that was like going into youth group. I remember for the first little while that I was in your youth group, like I remember we didn't have any worship band or anything, but you would just play like songs over the speaker, and we'd have like words on the wall, and everybody would just face that way. And I remember like you would play like some Under Oath, like every once in a while, the like For Today, like Talmudim or that song, which I like really connected with, and that's like some of the most intense worship like nights I've ever had were when like those alternative like things were played. It wasn't just the stereotypical contemporary Christian music. Stuff like that, but it was like alternative, and like it had screaming at the end, and it was just so visceral and so raw and real, and it was just like it really connected with me in that way. So
yeah, I remember I had a few kids come, and I remember it was the first time I played I think it was Found Hiding by Bless the Fall. Was that it? Was it Bless the Fall that did Found Hiding? It was like an EP. It's like a sketch. You can't find it anywhere. I had to play it one night for us, but it was just something that was so out there. And I remember the very first time I played Under Oath, Some Will Seek Forgiveness. Yes. And just everybody was like, oh, this is such a good song. And he's like, Jesus. And I was because, you know, it's something new. It's the first time I've actually done something like that. Well, not to that extreme. Well, to that extreme, sort of. But it was so positive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, see, it doesn't have to be inside a box for me.
Right.
And that's when you recommended Thieves and Kings, Darcy, and I went and listened to it. I was like, and of course I read your review and the reco for it. And when I got done reading it, I was like, I've got to go listen to it. And it was exactly what I needed to hear at that moment, because it was great music, number one. Good music. But it was, and I was telling, I think when we did it on the show, I was telling, or before I did it on the show, I was telling Justin and Keith how it took me back to, because I'm not a hymn person per se, but I do like some of the, you know, the way the lyrics are arranged and what's in it and the content. And that song, Cursing Tongue, if you're a Christian now, and I understand if you're not a Christian, it doesn't sit with you the same way. But it brought me to a place where I hadn't been brought before, and I was like, that's what's missing in worship music. That's what's missing in music. I mean, even music that doesn't reflect to Christianity or anything like that. The passion behind that story of just, you know, pouring your heart out there, that was in that song. And I was like, oh, again, I cannot begin to thank you for that recommendation.
I'm glad you checked it out. Yeah, I gotta say, especially that song, like that is what sealed the deal. Like that group just blew me away right there. And yeah, so I'm totally with you on like the worship music. Like when, okay, there's the band Great Commission. I'd been listening for like a couple years, like came to my rescue. And then one of my friends was in the car, like, are they doing a Hillsong song? I was like, what? That's not Hill. Because I had never even heard the Hillsong version. And then I listened to it later. I was like, wow, it really is that song.
It is.
I hadn't even heard the Hillsong, yeah. And so now it's like one of the heavier songs I could sneak in on the iPod when my wife and I are driving somewhere because she's totally down with it.
Yeah, it's hard with the wife sometimes, Yeah. She's like, "Can we not listen to something that's so much screaming?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, I guess. What do you want to listen to?" But so where and we'll transition here in a second, but kind of getting a picture maybe of where you want to go forward with this. Give me a second. That's why we can edit the podcast.
Beauty.
So with what you're doing with Johnson the Sound and the mix of how it plays into your faith, what are you looking at moving forward? How does this all work together in maybe 5 years down the road for you?
Okay, that's an interesting question because this is something I ask pretty much every band that I interview, and then I think to myself, I have no idea how I would answer that.
I know. I read your interviews.
I know. Man, using my stuff against me. Well, it really just started out like, I'll see how this goes for a couple months, and then, I'll just throw a couple posts up there. And then I was getting some response, that's why I set up an email address for it, and now there's, a few different labels I'm emailing back and forth with. I'm like, that's cool. So then, that's when I decided, okay, I'll do Facebook and Twitter, and it just keeps kind of building a little bit. So I didn't think, like how you were saying, if you make it past 7 episodes of a podcast, like you're beating the norm. I didn't think I was going to go past like 3 months of blogging. So I've been at it for, I don't know, like a year and a half. And I don't know. I'm really just going to take it as it comes. I would love to see it grow. But here's the thing. Because people say like, oh, are you going to take on like contributing writers? But also, I just have a bit of an ego, so I love that I have total control of it. So I love, because it's like, this is my baby. This is what I'm spending all my spare time on. Like when I'm reviewing an album, I'm not just like going to spin it once. Like even if it's like 6-song EP or something, I'm through it like at least like a dozen times at least. And so I'm like, it's all music that I really, really connect with. So, yeah, I don't know how to answer because I don't see myself just, hanging it up one day because it's something I connect with so deeply.
Right.
But I don't really have any vision for it in the future. I guess I'm just going to pick up opportunities as it comes and, see where we go.
That's so crazy because I'm constantly scheming on my end. And Justin knows I'm always bringing something. I was like, what about this? What about this? Let's try this. Let's do this. Because I'm always trying to think of something to branch out.
Right. And I'm always more like Darcy's attitude, like, whatever happens, man, let's just go. Let's just do it.
I'm old and I don't have the advantage to go, let's just see where it goes. I'm old, man. I only got so much time
Your
left.
time is short, man.
It is short. But
well, here we go. Ask me that question again in 20 years and I will have so many ideas.
Well, it's crazy because, like you said, it's your baby. And I'm always telling Justin, I was like, man, I'd love to find a couple more people just to write with us, because I used to write a lot, but because of the time frame that I have as far as my schedule daily, I don't have the time to sit down and just like pour into writing where I used to a few years ago. I remember when I first established my first blog, man, I was writing 4 to 5 blogs a month. And I was just killing it. And then of course I got, regular full-time jobs. And I was like, man, I just don't have the time to write. And I told Justin, I was like, I feel like I can express my views better through speaking instead of writing because, writing, Justin knows, you got to take a little bit of time. You got to go back. You got to look over it. You got to get it right. With speaking, I can just screw up whenever I want and just hit the pause button or edit it and fix it back in there. And it's real easy to do that. So I mean, we're always like, I always want some more people to come on board, like the podcast. It always seems so much better when you have more people involved. But if it's only you, I can see that. and don't get me wrong, it's working well for you.
Oh, thank you.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, the last time I was on your website, you had over like 700 plus followers on through the website. I think it was.
Yeah, every couple posts, there's I'll see a couple more followers and just making new connections on Facebook and Twitter. So that's really the encouragement that really keeps me going as well. And just seeing like when the band is sharing their, the interview I did with them or something like that.
Right.
Just, it gets me stoked that it's actually reaching people.
That's like I said, I'm a big fan, and I share it. And I know when you did the Rapture interview. I read through that and I was like, oh, that's good. And I shared it. And I was like, I just got to share it. It's like, I don't care if you like hardcore music. I'm just going to share it. So if you're listening,
I totally appreciate it.
If you're listening to the show and you haven't gone over to Giants in the Sound, at least on Facebook, facebook.com/Giants in the Sound, go over there, give them a like, support them a little bit, and read his stuff. It's good. Transitioning a little bit. We've been talking, we talked in the beginning about, of course, the gay marriage ruling. We talked about the Charleston shooting. We've talked about the Confederate flag. And we got into a little bit how you see it from the North. And I wanted to ask you some questions because I was reading an article the other day. If I'm not mistaken, it was a Canadian woman who was raised in a same-sex marriage. She was one of 6 kids, I think, who had 2 dads. And she stated a lot. I don't know if you saw the article, Justin, but it's basically basically what happened in Canada 10 years ago or however long ago is when they passed the ruling for gay marriage there. That we would start seeing the same kind of thing and I don't know how it goes. Did you see did you see?
Yeah, I think I saw that article.
Yeah. And what I wanted to do was ask you, Darcy, a few things because sometimes people post things that are not true. Because they'll say this, that, and the other, and they'll exaggerate things. So the reason I wanted to ask you this stuff is because we got into last week, we were talking about the separation of church and state and government and religious freedom and liberty and things like that. And, we always hear things come from, we have people, the mission boards down here tell us about, how, bad Canada is with the churches and how, the religious up there, they're being persecuted or whatever. So I get a chance to ask somebody who actually lives there to give me the truth so I'm not hearing things secondhand. And which for me, I want people to know that, if you really want an answer, friend somebody who's from that area and talk to them and find out for real. Like when I was in Haiti, I got to find out things about real life in Haiti, not what people were telling me. So my first question for you is, being a Christian in Canada, how is it a place that is hard to live out your faith, or do you think it's just as easy as it is here in the United States?
I'd say there's probably not a lot of difference between what would be your experience and mine, where I'd where the most persecution I would face in a day is, me saying something about going to Bible study the night before and then somebody, leaving the conversation or me getting an odd look or something. Okay. Where, I don't feel, yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't even realized that, if we're going to talk about the gay issue for a second, the gay marriage legalization, that 10 years ago, I didn't even realize it had been 10 years. But, it's the same kind of thing. You would post an article about what it means for churches and church-based ministries and stuff. Same kind of thing. A church doesn't have to perform that marriage if they're not all about it or for it. And so... yeah, it's interesting that we talk about that right now because right now in Toronto, this is Pride Week. So there is massive parades going on and music festivals. And one of my friends posted the other day that he was going to an evening service downtown, but the road was blocked off for a parade, and then he ended up standing next to guys like dressed as Lucky Charms characters and whatever. And he ended up in the middle of the festivities just accidentally. But yeah, so it's just like, it's pretty much the Canadian stereotype where there is like acceptance all around, really.
Right. So I'll just say that that's kind of refreshing because I know the first thing that I saw a bunch of people posting is like, oh, well, they're not going to come in my church and ask me to perform it. And then somebody's like, well, they're going to start arresting you and putting you in jail for this, that, and the other. So there's not any of that happening in Canada either, is there? There's not. Their pastors aren't going to jail because they're refusing to do gay marriages, because I'm pretty sure that, most gay people are not going into churches that they know aren't going to do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So I haven't heard of any cases of that. And it seems like, I can't even imagine somebody coming into, your local downtown country church and asking that pastor. So, yeah, it's just not even really an issue. At least that I've observed anyway.
And that's been so crazy for me. That's one of the, like you said, one of the points that I made in the article is that, like, no one's forcing you to do this. And a lot of people, at least that I've read, whether it be Facebook or articles or whatever, have had that argument, that kind of slippery slope. Well, now, Christians are going to start being persecuted and da-da-da. And it's like once one thing goes against a Christian idea, all of a sudden people like to scream persecution and oppression. And that really bothers me. And because, like, in all honesty, you're not being persecuted, you're not being oppressed. Like, just someone disagreed. The government that you live under, like, has an idea about what marriage is that's different than yours, and that's fine. And a lot of people have, said, well, I'm afraid that people will start arresting pastors for hate speech, or people, will force pastors to do same-sex marriages. And if you look, like, anywhere else in the world that has gay marriage legalized, like, that has not been an issue at all.
Yeah,
and so that's been something that's kind of frustrated me a little bit.
Yeah, I think the only article that I have ever seen about a gay couple suing a church or a pastor for not performing the services was in England, and that was like over a year ago.
Yeah.
And of course, as soon as this all happened, that post started popping up on Facebook like it was like today. And like
everyone was like, see?
Yeah,
See?
exactly. And there was a lot more stipulations to that article, or to what really happened there,
right,
than meets the eye. It wasn't just like they showed up at a church and decided to do this. It was a lot more to it. And again, not condoning it or pushing it away one way or the other. My thing is that don't over dramatize something that you have no idea about. And that's the next question I want to ask you too, based off this article that I read, which could totally be false. Is there, there was this thing, and I wished I had the article pulled up so I could be more intellectual about it, but I'm not. The article kind of beat around the bush about these things called tribunals, like hate speech tribunals. Like, if you're out in public or you're a teacher or you're a business owner or this, that, or the other, and if you have any type of thing like you're against gay marriage or this, that, or the other, and somebody's offended, they could bring you before these tribunals and you could be fined, or that there would be a great amount of court costs, like tens of thousands of dollars of fines and stuff that you would be, have to pay, because even if you were found innocent of this, you would still have to pay all these court cost fees, where the plaintiff wouldn't have to pay anything because it's covered by the government. Is that something you heard of, or is that just pure, like in Southern talk, hogwash?
I'm sure there's some truth in there. Not something personally, that no, I know you're not saying me personally, but that I really know anybody. Yeah, I don't know. Like, there are hate speech laws, obviously, in the Criminal Code of Canada. And, dude, I just not something I know much about.
No, that's great, because I'm
like going back to like grade 10, like civics class. I'm like, I don't know, dude. But it's not something I'm seeing like in the news all the time. It's not something that's popping up. So it is really top of the mind. Yeah, I don't think it is as common as maybe this article is making it sound.
Okay.
Yeah, because from the article, like I have it pulled up here, but like
Okay,
the
thank you.
article, it goes on to say like how free speech and free press or whatever is extremely limited in Canada, and if you like even speak out against like gay marriage or anything like that, then you can lose your job or lose like anything like that, or you could be like fired and lose your tenure and all that sort of stuff. Like even if you like on social media say anything against it.
Well, I know it's all over social media, so I'm just seeing very, obviously, yeah, there's people with strongly opposing these kind of things on social media. Yeah, I can't speak with too much authority. Like I'm just trying to think of an example of, like somebody losing tenure or something. Like, I know this is, maybe if there's somebody, some like member of parliament or something, that is like, it seems like there's always, some politician or something that's making some comment and then backtracking and then, things carry on. So it kind of makes it sound like it's a, one strike kind of policy.
Right. So it's not
making it sound like communist China or something.
Yeah,
when it comes to that.
And that's exactly the point I was going to make. And she kind of paints it out to be this like Orwellian society where the government controls like every aspect of what people think and say.
Yeah, and that's and the reason I bring it up is not really to like put Darcy on the spot and oh, he's Canadian, let's get him.
He knows everything about Canada.
Well, because if you ask just the normal everyday person in America about certain things, they wouldn't be able to speak to it because they're like, I don't, because people say, well, this happens in America, and well, if you're not from there, well, you really don't know. And that's why I wanted to ask, because of course that's one of those articles or posts that are being pushed around saying, hey, watch out, watch out, watch out. And how much validity does it have? How much truth? I mean, I'm not saying it's, dishonest or not, but how much truth does it really hold in the grand scope of everything? And that's, that's one of those things where, like I was talking about before we came on a podcast about the post I posted, speak honestly about things. Just don't add stuff to it, because I think that fuels hate, that fuels strife, that fuels the anger that does not actually need to be there. Yeah. That's what bothers me the most. We were talking about the Charleston shooting. Number one, we know the kid was a racist. We know he didn't, we know he had hatred. But don't try to add more things on top of it than this was a kid who did what he did, and now you're trying to add more fuel to the fire to get, I guess, to push your agenda more. I heard this somewhere else, so don't quote me for saying it. And Darcy, you may know who I'm talking about. I don't know if you follow, but do you know who Al Sharpton is? Okay, so from what I heard, he wanted to go down to Charleston. The people in Charleston said, no, we don't want you down here. We don't want it down here. Take that back. And that wasn't just the white people. That was everybody saying, we don't want you coming down here fueling a hate situation, and that was, again, people, if you're listening and I quoted it wrong, then hey, that's fine. But that's what I heard. So I'm just going to be a hearsay person right now. But, we don't need more of that. We were talking about earlier how, people are happy about the gay marriage ruling, and they're like, oh, love wins. But the first thing they want to do is, like Justin was saying, get on Facebook. Well, if you don't like what I'm saying, then you can just delete me off of Facebook. And I'm like,
yeah, exactly. Or there go, like, if anyone says anything negative, I'm deleting you off my friends. And I'm like, what purpose does that serve? Yeah. Sorry, that just gets me really mad.
And so that doesn't help. That doesn't help our cause any, because you can't love everybody if you're deleting them off your Facebook page.
Right.
Well, I mean, that may be redundant in itself too. Oh my gosh. So, all right. So we've asked you a couple of questions about where you're from. We've asked you about your beginning and your faith walk and things like that. All right. So at some point you started listening to our podcast, which is absolutely amazing. Anybody listens. So, and we kind of drum this theme that, we want to love everybody, which, we're terrible at because, as Christians, we'll feel like we're just totally depraved and,
Yep.
and we can't do anything right, but we want to learn how to, and we want to learn to do it with everyone. We really like the hashtag love wins, but in a different way. And we're not trying to promote Rob Bell either, even though, hey, the book is good. You just
Yeah.
got to be ready to read it. Our jokes are done for today, but, but how do you relate with kind of like what we're trying to do, and how does that spill over into maybe what you do every day? Speaking of loving people, and people are not projects and that kind of thing.
Right. Well, first of all, yeah, what kind of drew me into your... I'm just going to jump off from your podcast here. I think the first episode I listened to was you guys... I remember we're super excited about the new Star Wars trailer. And then
Oh, yeah.
I was like, okay, cool. Average down to earth dudes. And then I just thought it was so cool that, it wasn't just you two Christian guys talking. There's, people of other faiths and totally other beliefs. I'm like, yes, I am all for this, because I just believe that you really need those people, that challenge your ideas and, see things from a different perspective. This is something I feel like I'm doing with my friends all the time, and I actually love it. Even Silent Planet posted something about the ruling the other day, and one of my friends texted me. He's like, "Hey, what did you think what the band said?" I was like, "Dude, I love it." And then he was like, "I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence." I'm like, "How, man?" And then we just went back and forth, and I feel like, especially in my friends group, there's 3 or 4 guys that I feel like I used to see things super black and white, and now I am the guy that, even if I'm not totally against, even if I agree with them, I'm trying to bring it from the other perspective just to keep the
Right.
conversation going.
Exactly.
And just realizing that maybe we don't have everything right.
Right.
And so I actually, so our pastor just started a series on parables of Jesus that he tells in the book of Matthew. And he told this one in chapter 13 about, the wheat and the weeds growing together, and people want to pull up the weeds growing in the wheat. But Jesus is like, dude, you just leave it. And, let the weeds and the wheat grow together. And then, there's judgment at the end,
Yeah.
the angels pull them out and burn the weeds and stuff. But, what I'm looking at there is let the weeds and the wheat grow together.
Right.
And we can't just all be living in these perfect, corn rows that are, perfectly aligned, and people just like us. And, you need to see all perspectives and do life with your neighbors.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not totally living, otherwise you're just deleting people that don't agree with you on your Facebook and stuff like that.
Well, there's so many theological concepts we can get from that parable. And we won't get into them all, because I was going to say,
it's I'm barely going to touch on this. We can't dive into this.
let me just say, the first thought that came into my mind is just let the wheat and weeds grow together. I was like, do you ever think a weed can turn into the wheat? Or is that just a Calvinist problem?
Yeah, that was about 45 minutes of discussion at my Bible study the other night. I was like, I don't even know where we landed on that.
And it's I love to see that there are other people out there that feel like, we don't know it all, and there could be so many things that could, change the way we see, we believe. And when people, open themselves up to just be able to ask questions, to things that challenge them and say, you know what, maybe, what about this? Or what about that? Or, hey, could, which we, of course, had a long discussion, a few of them go, could we be wrong about what we believe? And if you're not, I think if you're not able to do that, at least to challenge the possibility that there's things different from the way you believe, I think we don't, and just speaking from a Christian perspective, I don't believe we can grow in a positive direction from that if we just stay in a little stagnant pool of wherever we're at. Because, it kind of gets stinky and it doesn't go nowhere.
Yeah.
But
it just seems like there's like, such an arrogance about some people that, just give the impression that they've got all the answers and, you have questions about the Bible, come ask me, or, I know all about, the existence of time. I'm like, easy, killer. Like, I think, that is just, such hubris. Like, you're just a little man just like me, and we can just help each other out here in figuring things out.
Right.
so, in your sphere of people, your sphere of influence, is it a mixed group of people? Would you say it's more Christian or kind of even? Because I know for most of us, for most Christians, we're in a more Christian sphere just because of the nature of what we do and live every day. But do you feel like that you really get out there and try to meet new people? And I'm going to say this because we've kind of addressed this on the situation with the agenda to, really meet new people, not knowing or caring what they believe and hoping that sometime in the future it'll come up, but it wouldn't change how you live and treat those people.
Well, first to answer the question about, my sphere of people, my wife and I just, after finishing school a couple years ago, we just lived in this new town for about a year and a half. So it's basically starting over. We knew a handful of people in the church, but basically it's like getting to know people out in the community. And like, in where I work, I think there's like 2 other people that are believers, and I don't even work in the same area as them. So, and it gets better because all my coworkers are like middle-aged moms, and there's a grandmother in there. So it's like not even close to my peer group. So like not people I'm recommending my blog to, but people I'm like, can have these life conversations with. So it's super cool. But then also, was able to start up like a young men's Bible study. And like the other night, we just went out to a pub and had some wings and some drinks and hung out. And, there was just like, they knew tons of people because like the guys I was with have been here like their whole life. So just meeting new people through there that were just hanging out with their friends. I'm like, this is awesome. And so, yeah, like people as projects kind of thing. I don't know, something really rubs me the wrong way about that whole idea. I led a small group a couple years ago based on a book called Just Walk Across the Room by Bill Hybels, and it's awesome. It like totally pushes you to get out of your little sphere of people and just go start up conversations and just do life. And he gives such good examples of like his neighbor that they would bring the garbage out at the same time every day. And then it just went on like that for like a year, and they would just have little chats here and there. And one day, like, he just started a conversation with them, and then Bill was able to invite him to his church and stuff like that. And it's like just those little interactions, like that book especially was just really big in changing my kind of idea of, that relationship kind of evangelism.
Right. That's good stuff. I like that. Wow. I'm literally running out of questions here. Darcy's like, yeah, I'm done. Well, let me ask a couple simple questions so everybody can get to know you, because I kind of feel this is not going to be the last time you hear Darcy, or especially not the last time you see from him, but hopefully not the last time you actually hear from him. Favorite band? If you had to say my go-to, if I'm getting in the car, I need something to just put me in the right mood, what is the go-to?
Okay, that is such a tough one because I make such a practice of like seeking out new stuff.
Exactly.
But Zayo or Norma Jean would be a couple of ones that I always go back to. Like Bless the Martyr and Kiss the Child will probably always be my number one album.
That was so good.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
I like that answer. That's awesome. I like that. So, Justin, I want to send it because I want people to hear from you too.
Okay.
What's your go-to?
Oh man, it really depends on the mood I'm in, and like honestly, it depends on the weather, because if it's like sunny outside and I can like roll the windows down, I'll have some like Weekend as Romans and like For Today, and like I'll just blast some Confide like out the window.
Oh my gosh.
And but if it's like rainy and I have to like keep the windows up and like stuff like that, I'll play some like
Sound of
folksy
Music.
Yes, always. Les Mis, Phantom of the Opera. I'll be jamming out to myself, singing in my car. That legit happens. So
Yeah, it does. I wasn't even making a joke. I was just
Yeah.
like adding.
no, yeah, you're
That's
right.
amazing.
You're right.
But and I know it's a tough question to answer because it's always hard to say, well, what's your favorite? Especially if you love music. If you love music, you've got so many favorites.
Also, just for the record, pop punk is also something that I have a soft spot for. So like A Day to Remember, some good old Fall Out Boy and stuff like that. I'll always blast that, and then whenever people can hear me, I have to turn it down a little bit because I feel a little bit embarrassed about some of the things, like old school My Chemical Romance and stuff like that. I will just jam out to that.
Oh, Justin.
That is great.
So, I think that we went like a little bit all over the place, but I just like having good conversations with good people, people that we know, people that we don't know. We learned a lot tonight. I want to go back to just one point that we were talking about earlier, when we were talking about kind of being a little bit fake about what we talk about, and or what people can talk about. Like you're on one thing in a moment, hey, love wins, but yet you kind of you're trashing somebody else at the same time.
Right.
And the reason that, and I would love to get y'all's points about it too before we finish up here. The whole love wins things, the whole gay marriage ruling thing, the one thing that I thought that was really good for it, I mean, no matter what you believe, how you agree with homosexuality or not, the one thing I thought that would happen, which I knew it wouldn't, but at least I knew it wouldn't happen from the Christian standpoint overall, because there was going to be this big stance like, oh gosh, they're taking away our religious freedom. Oh,
Right.
now we're going to be forced to do this, that, and the other. But I at least thought from the other side that there would be this, this outpour of, hey, love wins. We're going to love, and a friend of mine posted a comment I'm going to get to in a minute after I get y'all's points. But I feel like that if we're actually going to get behind a hashtag that says love wins,
Yeah.
and you're going to be on that on the side of we've actually got what we've been trying to get. We're trying to get equality. We want it equal across the board, and that's my thing. If you want it equal across the board, then you've got to come at every human being that you see them as an equal. That
Yep.
they're no better than you and they're no worse than you.
Yep.
And I think that's what we really want to stand out here for at Forgetting Walls, is saying, look, people, I'm no better than you. Matter of fact, I feel that I'm worse than most people. I really
Right.
feel at a lower level than people. I want to put people above me, but it's really hard sometimes to look at somebody in the face and saying, yeah, you're making it hard for me right now because you speak one message, but you act another.
Right.
I mean, I'll tell you that I do that because I know I do that at times. And that's why I feel that if we can come to that place and, to mention the phrase humility, that we should have humility, is not just the absence of pride, but for me, when I speak of humility, is putting somebody else before you. And that's what we want to do, even though we don't do it all the time. That's what
Yeah.
we want to do. I want you to live the way you want to live. That's your prerogative. That's not my place to tell you. We've always said it's not my job to convict. As a Christian, we believe it's the Holy Spirit's job to convict. So what you do in your life is your business. Now, if you want advice, I'll give it to you. If you want me to come alongside you and help you through life the way I've been through life, hey, great. But I'm going to try my best and what I know to love you for who you are. Not for who I am or who I want you to be or what you can be, but for who you are. And that's why I love Jesus.
Yep.
I know some people can't get on board with the whole Christian thing and they think we're crazy and that religion is a harmful thing too. But if I'm telling you, if everybody could get on board with the fact that Jesus loves me just as I am, who I am, not who I can be in him, but who I am at that moment. And if we can love that way, then I tell you, I feel like there's something there that people are missing. And that's why I feel that if Christians are going to speak out against homosexuality or gay marriage or, abortion or anything else, they first need to love those people right where they're at and forget what they're doing just for a moment to say that is a human being And
Yep.
even though I might not have done the same things as them, or I'm not that same person as them, Jesus loved me right where I was at in those moments too. And I am no different than them. And so if
Yep.
people can't get on board with that, then you know what? We may be absolutely the wrong podcast to listen to, because I'm going to tell you, that's not what we're about. I mean,
Yep.
like I said, have a hard time doing it, but that's what we're about.
Yep. I agree. I mean, you said there's so much there that I could go off of, but because as always, you talk way too much. But
You're welcome.
no, but it's all good. No, but I totally agree, because my main thing was whenever I saw people who had the hashtag, love wins, and I was like, awesome, sweet, you support like gay marriage and love for everyone, sweet. And then immediately, like, on there's you know that it's negative when you see like 20 some comments on it, something has gone down. And so then you scroll through and they're just like bashing other people who disagree and calling other people bigots and stuff. And I'm like, really? Did love really win there? Like, and I totally agree with you. If we could just look at people as people who deserve love and respect and acceptance, not necessarily agree, because I think there's this weird concept that people are like, you have to agree with everything the person does in order to accept them. That's not the case. Like, I can disagree with you and still accept you for who you are and love you. And I think if we treated people like people and saw people as freaking human beings, then I think it would, like you said, it'd be a lot different place.
Yeah.
So.
Totally. Because, like, especially the Christian group is known as being like against this and against this issue. And I'm just like, man, if you took that energy, instead of like picketing these things, instead you set up like counseling, or just go for coffee with one of these people, get to know them. Like, there are way better uses for your energy. Like, we don't need to be known as against this issue and this issue. We need to be known as pro-love. Yeah, totally. Just connecting. Like, we're not perfect. Like, we've got so much in common. Why are we focusing on these little differences?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to say this. I've had, so far tonight, it's been awesome for me. I love meeting new people. I love having new people on the show with us. Darcy, it's been great so
It's been
far.
really awesome.
Yeah,
Man, thank you so much for letting me be a part of it. This is sweet.
Yeah,
No problem. Thanks for jumping on board last minute.
Oh, absolutely. Because, if we didn't have you on tonight, it'd been just me and Justin, and you know how I talk a lot. So,
Yeah, that would have dragged on.
thanks, Justin. We'll be back in a
problem.
minute. We'll be back in a minute. And welcome back, guys and girls. That was We Came as Romans with Hope. I think that's actually my daughter Jade's one of her favorite songs. So
Oh, really?
I raised my kids great, man. You know what
I
I'm
was
saying?
going to say, parenting done right.
Right on, man.
By the way, I love the fact that during that break, all of our heads were bobbing at different times.
And the crazy thing was, as I was thinking, as I was like, just getting into it. And I'm like, if you're listening to this and your head is not just like going up and down, something's wrong with you. Because I remember when it came out, and actually I think my daughter, she said, "Hey, have you heard the new We Came as Romans when this came out?" And I'm like, "No." She's like, "Played." I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's so good." And I was like, "I love you." I love you so much. And Justin, we love spreading the love.
Yeah.
You know, because the love is good, and we just talked about love, and there's like relational love, and there's like love between friends, and there's love
Yep.
of music, and for me, if you can't see, I'm a big boy, so there's a love of food, but there's a love for the media. You know what I'm saying, Justin?
Yeah.
But there's only one type of love for the media.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's right, and it's this
What
kind of love.
Oh, yeah. It's time to get juicy with Justin's Juicy Bits.
We love you.
So, Justin,
Yes.
let's finish this show up.
All right.
What you got?
So I got 3 stories for us today. The first one that I have is, so I thought it was interesting, just the headline. It says, tinned mackerel, teddy bears, and a cat's ashes, and even a mock turtle on cops' livestock theft list. So this comes from the UK. And it
course.
says, police have accidentally included salmon fillets, tins of mackerel, teddy bears, and cat's ashes, even a mock turtle, a fictional turtle in Alice in Wonderland, on their list of livestock thefts. So basically, you know, what livestock theft is, where basically like people report that people have stolen like cows or chickens, you know,
Right,
livestock. And so these are things that, because of the Freedom of Information request about the number of livestock thefts in London, like over the past 3 years, there's a bunch of really weird items that have come out, such as salmon fillets. That 15 salmon worth 68 pounds were stolen from a shop after the crooks, quote, placed them inside their coats. You have, on March 23rd, 2013, the log states 2 tins of mackerel worth 4 pounds were stolen from a shop. You have mock turtles worth 40 pounds were stolen from a pet shop. Teddy bears, even. The log states that a house burglar left the theft of 2 teddy bears, both approximately 2 feet tall, one white with a red nose and red paws, the other yellow. A cat's ashes. The police log stated that suspects forced a ground yellow floor window and stole a deceased cat's ashes. And there's like a bunch of other stuff like fish platters and stuff like that, and it's really it's really strange. And you know, they have more normal stuff like chickens, ponies, cats, dogs, canaries, stuff like that. But it says one officer who has worked at the Met for more than 10 years said, quote, "The list of entries is comical. It's not the officers making the mistakes. It's whoever's compiling this list."
You know,
How can they include teddy bears and tins of mackerel as livestock?
Yeah.
You know what's compelling to me in this story, though, is the
What?
amount of fish that is stolen or talked
It's like
about being
80%
stolen.
fish.
Yeah.
You know, I meant taking fish and chips to a whole new level. I meant, I'm looking through this because I kept looking through the list that you sent, and there's fish platters and white and monkfish and cheeks and Dover sole and salmon fillets and brim. And I'm just like, I'm like, my gosh. My favorite thing was the mock turtle.
Yes.
Because I think it was incorrectly called, or it should have been correctly called musk turtles, but they called them mock turtles. And we all know where mock turtles are from because that's in Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
But hey, we got some mock turtles that were stolen. I mean, they're completely imaginary. You
Right.
know?
And I can almost understand most of these, but the cat's ashes, that's the one that really gets me. Why are you breaking through a window and taking somebody's cremated pet? That one kills me.
You know, I don't know what's worse, stealing the cat ashes or keeping the cat ashes. Crazy cat lady to a whole new level. My goodness. You know, and while we're over here in America stressing with the police issues that we have, in the UK, we get this. What's on the top of your list? 2 teddy bears 2 feet tall. Oh my goodness.
All right, so my next article, because I seem to have a theme, and I honestly don't mean to have this theme, but
Liar.
apparently, like, okay, whatever. So there's this theme in all of my news stories recently of intoxicated animals in one way or another, whether it's chimpanzees and wine or something like that. Like, so this one is stoned dog can't stand up after eating owner's cannabis cakes in a shocking video. And so it's a video, and basically it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a husky. It's a beautiful dog, but its tongue is all hung out of its mouth, and it's like falling all over the place. Yeah, it says the owner, Tony Costa, wrote, after having friends over, my roommate and I were watching TV when we noticed Loki, which is the name of the dog. My roommate's dog starts flipping out in the corner. After investigating, we established that he had went to one of our friends' bag and ate his Rice Krispie treat filled with marijuana. After contacting our vet friends, we knew it was just a waiting game. We kept careful watch over him over the next 20 hours. The next morning, he was still high and able to walk. By that evening, he was back to normal, running around. He said Tony added that he posted the video for entertainment as well as educational purposes.
I wish I could see the video because it just won't play. But
yeah,
the
so
pictures,
That dog is tripping out.
the pictures are like
yeah.
intense.
So they're like holding him, and he's kind of like just standing there, and his tongue's hung out, and they're like, "Put your tongue back in, buddy," and they put it back in his mouth, and it just flops back out. And
Oh man.
it's actually kind of sad, but it's still really funny.
You hate animals, Justin.
No, I love animals.
Because I don't understand. We had drunk chimpanzees, drunk raccoons.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the list goes on and on and on with you. What is your fascination with intoxicated animals?
What's the internet's fascination with intoxicated animals? That's the
Yeah.
question.
Well,
Good point.
my thing is you're an intelligent, educated person.
Well, thank you.
How do you go here? It's like, okay, I expect the stories of theft, crime. It's like, hey, crime is a thing we should be reporting, but you're always reporting the intoxicated animals.
Yeah.
I think you have a deep fascination, and I'm afraid that I won't allow you to have pets. I could come over to Justin's house and see now. It's like, what is your dog? What's wrong with your dog over there? He had a bottle of red wine. What?
Yeah.
You know those
It's a
gin and
cat
tonic.
with real glazed over look.
I needed someone to drink with, man.
I don't. Yeah, I was afraid I was becoming an alcoholic, so I started drinking with my dog. You know what? The crazy thing about it is I didn't get to see the video, but the second picture that's at the bottom of the page,
Yeah.
that dog looks blitz, son.
Yeah, he's all derpy-eyed.
He is so derped out. Harley would love this. I almost feel like he should have saved that one for last.
But no, I have one more story.
Oh, this is going to be great.
So this is from Associated Press. Mm-hmm. Man buys wrong lottery ticket, wins $30,000.
What?
So this is
Backwards.
yeah, I know, right? This is in Fairfield, Connecticut. A man in southwestern Connecticut who mistakenly bought the wrong lottery ticket is $30,000 richer. Bob Sabo of Easton says he didn't want to wait in line to buy a lottery ticket at the super shop in Fairfield, so he decided to buy a ticket from a lottery vending machine, something he had previously never done. Sabo says he meant to buy two $20 tickets, but says he didn't have his glasses on and instead bought a $30 ticket. When he got home, he discovered the ticket was a winner. So yeah.
Wow, the store's
Did
going
we
to
say that was blind luck?
boom.
Yes.
My thing is,
Thank you.
I don't know where it came from. That just happened.
Oh my gosh, I love you.
yeah, because that would have never happened for me. I'm not very punny.
Yeah.
No, not very punny. I'm just amazed that the store is going to receive $300 from it. Like,
Yeah, I know.
that would I would want to promote the lottery so much more if I knew my store was going to win money from that lottery.
Yep.
Man, 30,
Yeah, no kidding.
right? $30,000. This dude is richer. Blind luck. My goodness.
First time he ever bought one too.
That's amazing.
So those. Yeah,
ahead.
go for it.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say those are my stories for today.
Oh, that was so good, Justin. I appreciate you taking the time to grab those stories in such short notice.
Thank you.
Yeah, good stories. But Justin,
Yes.
when I was editing the podcast last night,
Yeah.
Kim my wife was in the living room, and she heard the very, very end, when someone said, I escaped.
Oh, yeah.
Bueller.
Yep. I figured. I knew it was going to be sometime near the end, so I was prepared.
But she goes, it was the best ending ever. That ending we did, she goes, it was so good. You thought you had escaped, and then I was like, bam, I hit it. And she's like, that was just so good. Yep. So, man, I can't say it for anybody else, but I had a blast tonight.
Tonight was awesome.
This was a short notice, like, shoot from the hip show. Darcy,
we're getting good at this podcasting thing, man. We're getting the hang of it.
we might.
You guys are pros. I'm glad to be along for the ride, man.
Well, we just want to.
It's scary that someone called us professionals.
Yeah. We want to shout out at Darcy. Thank you so much for sitting in with us, doing this show, being open and honest about you and your life and where you've been and the things you're doing and how you feel. A lot of people wouldn't do that, and we appreciate you doing that with us. So I want to give you a moment, promote yourself, give out all your stuff so everybody can know where to hit you up at.
Oh, well, thank you, dude. I had a blast with this tonight. Yeah, check out giantsinthesound.com. Also, I'm on Twitter as giantsinthesound and facebook.com/giantsinthesound. Keeping it pretty simple. If you could give me a like or a follow over there, that would mean a lot. You'd put a smile on this scruffy face. And yeah, thanks again to Forgetting Walls. You guys are awesome.
Hey, and we appreciate it so much that you do what you do, and you help us, and we help you, and hopefully we'll be doing this again here in the future.
Heck yeah.
Justin?
I would love it.
Yep.
Absolutely. Justin, always a pleasure. I'll be glad when you get down. You'll be glad when you get back our way so we can do one in the house.
You know it.
Well, with saying that, I'm Keith.
I'm Justin.
And I'm Darcy.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go. Just reminding you that people are not projects. They're people just like you and me, so love them like you love yourself. And guys and girls, we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Forgetting Walls podcast. If you're subscribing to us on iTunes, leave us a rating to help us spread the word about this podcast. Remember, the only way this works is if you share your story. So be sure to visit the website and leave us a comment at forgettingwalls.com, or find us on Twitter at forgettingwalls and facebook.com/forgettingwalls.
Peace!
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
There it is.
Woo!